Water. Stop. From a young age, I've always wanted to fly in a microlight aircraft. It seemed raw, open to the elements, but elegant and uncluttered. 20 years ago, I did do a 10,000-foot tandem freefall skydive, and my favourite part of that was the gentle drift down once the parachute had opened. And I always figured that flying in a microlight would feel a bit like that. When I found out my friend Daniel's been flying microlights, I immediately asked if he'd take me up, and thankfully and kindly, he said yes. After getting the microlight out of its hangar, a barn really in a farmer's field, complete with combine harvester, Daniel went through a series of important safety checks all over the aircraft and checking the nearby windsock for the crosswind speeds. Then before too long we were hurtling down the makeshift runway, a strip of trimmed grass as you can see in this map here, and we were rapidly up and into the air. Now what I wasn't expecting from this short flight was to fly over so much water history and some really exciting new water infrastructure developments down on the ground. We were in the air southwest of Manchester, England in the UK. First up, we flew over a fairly large body of water which, as you can see here, looks at first glance at least like a beautiful natural lake. But this is, historically at least, degraded landscape, spoilage from the Industrial Revolution. It's called Pennington Flash. Pennington Flash nowadays is a lovely area of national significance for its wildlife and recreation, rich in biodiversity, and home to several protected species. But so-called flashes like this are lakes that only formed because of subsidence from mining. Here it was coal mining around the borough of Wigan. Water flooded in from nearby watercourses like Haybrook and the Ince Mosses peat bogs when mine workings under agricultural land collapsed as their seams of coal were extracted, and over time these lakes formed mainly during the 20th century. The Leeds and Liverpool Canal is nearby, which was linked to the Bridgewater Canal in 1820, enabling large-scale transport of coal away from the mines and forever transforming this area. Roads and railways also cut across the flashes, and they were originally propped up onto embankments to counter the ongoing subsidence. This was using colliery spoil. Oh, and just a note that this here is us hitting a thermal, where Daniel is controlling the craft through that. Just like in our first water stuff video where we looked at the Shed and Clough Hushings, these flashes here are looked after by a partnership. This time between Lancashire Wildlife Trust and Wigan Council, and there's a Wigan Flashes Conservation and Community Group. So flying on, farther north, we came then to the Rivington Reservoirs. There are actually 7 reservoirs in this group across 3 shallow valleys between Bolton and Preston. Their water supply mainly serves the city of Liverpool once treated. The 3 reservoirs we flew over here were the Anglezark, Upper Rivington and Lower Rivington. They were built from around about 1850 to 1857, engineered by Thomas Hawksley, and Upper Rivington Reservoir alone holds almost 1,100 megalitres of water. Coincidentally, another reservoir nearby, the Yarrow Reservoir, built around about 1867 onwards, was designed by Liverpool's borough engineer by the name of, well, wait for it, Thomas Duncan. Yes, the exact reverse of my name. Originally, at Rivington, there were sand filter beds at the base of the Horwich embankment at the end of the Lower Rivington Reservoir. These have since been covered by and improved with multiple stage treatment. This treatment plant here is now apparently the largest fully automated water treatment works operated by the private water utility company for the area, United Utilities. But it was the roof of this automated water treatment plant and the land in front of it that really caught my eye. On it, and by it, there were seemingly hundreds of solar panels. From the air, of course, I could see this quite clearly, but in the GoPro footage we have here from the Microlight, they're much harder to see. So in these Google images you can see them a lot more clearly. I did look but couldn't easily find details about this particular massive solar scheme. What I did see was reports that United Utilities built a different 2.7 gigawatt hour per year, 12,000 solar panel floating installation on Godley Reservoir. That's some distance away near Hyde, Tameside, to the east of Manchester. Godley Reservoir has the largest floating solar installation in the UK, apparently costing over £3 million and built somewhere between about October 2015 and May 2016. The contractor finished around February that year. You can see some photos of that scheme here. Floating solar like this is apparently quite rare in the UK, but has been used in other parts of the world, like Japan. The Godley Reservoir floating solar installation was apparently built to help United Utilities meet its own target to generate more than a third of its power needs from renewable sources by 2020. So presumably the many solar panels I saw flying over the Rivington site are part of the same strategy. It was interesting to note, though, that I saw that the 3 megawatt capacity or 2.7 gigawatt hour per year solar installation at Godley described as only partially powering a local water treatment plant. So that really gives you an insight into how much power water treatment in the UK typically consumes. Oh, and Daniel was just showing me some of the controls of the Microlight here. At any rate, there are some great things to see going back towards the Rivington reservoirs. There's Liverpool Castle and Rivington Gardens, dating back to the 1900s, and Thomas Mawson and Lord Leverhulme, and Leverhulme bought the Rivington estate in 1899. Also in Rivington Gardens, Roynton Cottage, a single-storey wooden bungalow, was built in 1901, but it was burnt down in 1913 by the suffragette Edith Rigby. It was later rebuilt, but then demolished again in 1948 when the gardens opened to the public, so sadly there's no trace of it now. United Utilities' public sector predecessor, the North West Water Authority, water utility, took over the whole Rivington site in 1974. Anyway, as we made our way back towards landing, another thing from this flight really stuck in my mind. I was really surprised by how far up the farming smell of fertiliser drifts, and yes, you can still smell it at 1,000 feet, that's just over 300 metres up in the air. And this really made me think about the broader impact of what we'd normally think of as ground-level pollution sources. Other highlights were that we flew near, but of course not over, a prison, past a racecourse, and over the M6 motorway. Anyway, once we landed, I was also taken aback by how tired I felt once the engine was switched off. The noise and vibration had really worn me out, and holding onto the frame of the Microlight, I think. And I wasn't even the one doing the flying. I was also impressed by Daniel's vigilant record-keeping in his official Civil Aviation Authority logbooks. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this little record of my first ever flight in a Microlight and the various bits of water-related stuff we saw. My thanks again to Daniel for his kindness and generosity in allowing me to have this fabulous experience.